Good morning, everyone. So what are we working on today? Today I'm working on that Mitsubishi, the one with the blown up radiator. I started this the other day and I got dragged off of it, so now I'm back on it this morning. And this doesn't look like it's going to be a lot of fun. Let me show you what I got. So here we go. In case you guys didn't see the other video, the whole top of the radiator blew off. Not quite sure what happened. You know, did this thing maybe have a blown head gasket and it's putting pressure because it's a turbo into the cooling system and it blew it apart? Is the radiator cap stuck? Who knows? But anyway, like I said, I started the other day. I already got the charge cooler pipes disconnected on both sides. I got the fan shroud disconnected. What else? I think I only have to take it off here, up there, and then on the other side. I'm pretty sure I can leave the rest of it in place. It mounts down here. I already got the bolts off. There's one on each side. Now, one thing I noticed that I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do it, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. The intercooler is actually mounted to the radiator. But the problem is this. The bolts are, I forget, they're tamper-proof bolts, and they basically, the head of them snaps off when you get them to a certain torque. At least that's what they look like. So let me show you. So right here, the intercooler's in the front, and it mounts to the core of the radiator, actually this outer piece, which is part of the new radiator also. And if you look, there's 4 of these bolts holding it in place. And if you look at the head of it, it appears, focus in on that, it appears that is the type of bolt that snaps off once you get it through a certain torque. Now, for what reason they would use those, I have no idea. I mean, I've seen them used on steering columns. I've seen them used on ignition lock cylinder housings that hold them to a steering column. You know, tamper-proof reasons, you know, anti-theft reasons. But why would you use it on an intercooler? I haven't the slightest idea. I have no idea why. To me, it just makes no sense. So let me walk to the other side here. And you'll see that I got the charge cooler pipe disconnected. And like I said, the shroud held in the top and the bottom like that. And I think I just got to take that one Phillips head clip out. And the reason this thing overheated in the first place is this. For some reason, the belts are missing for the water pump. Not quite sure why, because the water pump's tight. So I have no idea what actually happened there. So let's get this thing apart, and I think I'm just going to pull the radiator with the intercooler out as an assembly and then stick it on a bench or a horse or something and try to figure out how I'm going to get it apart. I have an idea how I'm going to get it apart. It's just I don't know why they would even use those type of bolts. Whatever. There's also cooler lines at the bottom I got to disconnect, but there's a separate section where I can disconnect it up top. All right, let me go ahead and pull this thing out. All right, so I got the radiator out, and let me tell you, that is a heavy bugger. I needed an assistant on the other side to help lift it up and to get it out on my side. Let me show you what I got. Now here, you can get a better view. These things have, see how it's like a tapered piece here, and you can actually see where the piece snapped off when they tightened it down. What it is it's actually machined down, and I guess at a certain point they figure once it reaches a certain torque, the head of it snaps off. The head of this is just like a regular bolt, but like I said, they machine it down. They actually like put it on a lathe and cut it down, so this way it actually breaks at a certain given point. Why they would do that on this is beyond me. So, but now I got to figure out how to get these out. I have an idea, so I'm going to go ahead and try my idea first on one of them, and if it works, then I'll show you what I did. If it doesn't work, then I'll keep going until I figure it out, then I'll explain what I did. You may be able to get them out with vice grips, and I'm just going to replace them with regular bolts. But let's see if I can do what I think I can do. All right, so I got one out. Let me show you this real quick. Actually, it wasn't too bad to get out. This is what's left in there. That's what it looks like. And what I did, you can see the marks on the edge here. What I did was I have these twist sockets, turbo sockets, extractor sockets, whatever you want to call them. These are snap-ons. I've had other brands. They don't seem to work very well. I'm sure somebody out there makes a comparable one that's just as good or pretty darn close to it. But for me, in all honesty, like I said, I've had other brands. These are hands down the best. Hands down. Let me show you what I got, actually. So here's my 1/4-inch rack of them, and they go in very small steps. And they work really good for like 5.5 millimeter on up to like 10 millimeter. 11, maybe 12 even. But that's just a quarter drive stuff right there. And then I come up here. That's my socket drawer. You come up here, and I have these that go all the way up to a 19. And I tell you what, like I said, hands down, the best ones you can get. I broke that one, so as you can see, they warranted it. It's a new one. I think, actually, I think that's the only one I've ever broken. I did break a quarter drive one also. So basically, what I do is I take this, and just like that, it'll fit just over it, and it's just a snug fit. So now I'm going to tap that down with a hammer. Actually, see if I can do this one-handed. Yeah, so now it just went over the outside edge, and then you don't use an impact. And like I said, these things, oops, there, it actually didn't hold. Okay, let me tap it down again. Let me pause this so I can tap it down again. All right, so I gave it a better hit. So now I got it down. And like I said, I don't use an impact on these. I do everything by hand. And there it goes. And the beauty about these sockets too, is I've had people say, how do you get the bolt out? I got it stuck in there. Very easy, just one of two things. Either do that to get them off, or if you really have them jammed in there, see, now it'll actually grab it because it's already loose. If you really get them jammed in there, just put the socket in a vise, or not the socket, the actual bolt in a vise, the threaded part, and then just use the socket in reverse. Go like to tighten it, and it'll come right off. So, I mean, I've seen people struggle with it. They bash the socket with a hammer and everything else, trying to knock the thing out. Just go backwards. It comes right out. All right, yes, I'll continue. Let me get all this stuff swapped over. All right, so here's the new radiator and everything else all together. Now, if you recall, I showed you how these bolts were breakaway bolts. So I had to replace the bolts. Now, just so you know, let me see if I can get a good shot here. Anytime you ever have to replace hardware when dealing with a radiator or something like that, always be mindful of how long the hardware is. Because see how close that is to the actual fins of the radiator? If I grabbed the bolt that was a little too long to put in there, that thing would have poked right through it and could have actually punctured the radiator. Now, I've seen guys do that. I've done it. Where you have a fan shroud or something like that that bolts to the side of the tank, and you got the plastic tanks there, and they have like a little platform or whatever, and the screw goes through it. And I've seen people mix up the screws, done it myself, and you screw it in, and then you actually put a hole right through the tank. So it's something that, you know, you got to think about it, because a lot of times you're rushing, you don't even think about it, and you know, you think all the hardware is the same. Be careful. Sometimes you get hardware that's longer than others, and it'll go right through. So just something to keep in mind. So this, you know, I had to measure it out. The two of these bolts were the perfect size. The other two were a little too long. I actually had to cut them down a little bit. But everything's all mounted up. Oops. There we go. So it's all ready to go in place. Now that's a heavy bugger, that whole assembly. I can't do it by myself. So I'm going to wind up doing is picking it up and have a helper on the other side, and then we're going to drop it into place. I know I called this vehicle a Mitsubishi in the past, but it's an Isuzu. Anyway, so I got it all back together. I got the radiator in place, right there. It's not bad. It's heavy, so that's kind of a pain. I think the biggest pain in the neck is the shroud, because it's a 3-piece shroud. You got the part that bolts to the radiator. You got this rubber accordion in the middle, and then you have this metal bracing that actually bolts to the motor. So this way, the whole thing can shake independently of one another. So I got the belts on, and they're tight. I actually had it running, and everything seemed okay. I wasn't sure why it blew the entire top of the radiator apart. I mean, it was missing the belts, so it wasn't turning the water pump and it wasn't turning the fan, but still, it shouldn't have been enough to blow the top of the radiator off. I mean, it was in many pieces. So I had it running. Everything seems okay. I'm going to have to road test it. Remember, this thing was all folded down, so I straightened that all out. Yeah, that's about it. So I got everything together. I don't want to film it while it's running, because the way my audio is, all you're going to hear is the engine running. So actually, yeah, everything seems okay. I'm going to double check the coolant level, and then I'm going to take it for a road test and see what it does. Sounds like a plan to me. All right, so here we go. We're in the truck and we're getting ready to road test it. Nothing special. One thing they asked me to look at was they said that the fuel gauge doesn't work. Now, what I did notice, they said it's got fuel in it. But one thing I did notice, if you shut it off, see it drops. But also look at the temperature gauge. You know, the temperature gauge is all the way down. And I've had this thing running for probably a good half hour. The motor has heat in it. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I'm not really sure how far I'm going to get into it. I have no diagnostics for this vehicle at all. All right, let's take it for a road test, see what happens. All right, so I just took it for a 6-mile road test. Everything seemed fine. I want to let it cool off and just double check the fluid level. The temperature gauge actually started to go up finally. You see it? I don't know why this thing's running so cold, unless the thermostat's stuck open. I don't know. It's a possibility, I guess. But we're gonna see. I'm gonna double check the coolant level after this thing cools off, and see what the customer wants to do. If they want to go any further, they may want to just keep it like this. Who knows? Like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to get involved in a fuel gauge or not. I'll see if I can't find anything on it, but I don't think it's anything I really want to get involved with. I don't really know these trucks. You know, changing the radiator is one thing that's, I don't need any diagrams for that. So, all right. If you're getting anything out of my videos, hit the like button. If you could, please subscribe. That's it for today. Have a great day. Keep wrenching.